if I can make the journey that's happened for me, if I can make that road smoother or faster or more efficient for even just one other man, like that's worth it to me.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
What's this you being on our intro outro this week?
People are going to think that we're lying, that we're just
I
doing it to
know.
be dramatic or like get attention,
I know, like clickbait, but here bait.
right?
Ear
Like,
bait.
but I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still here, but you're not really here. But because we record episodes kind of like weeks in advance,
Yeah.
we like this interview today, you're part of. And I
Yes.
think I can't think off
I
for the
think
life of
that's
me
it.
who, yeah. And then there will be a few weeks where you're not in the interview. But if your schedule and like mental capacity permits, you'll
Yeah.
be in our intro outro.
Yeah. So I'll still be here.
Yeah, you're still kicking around.
Um, you can't get rid of me.
Well, I guess it depends. Like, so how's your house hunt going?
Not great. I haven't found a house.
No, not yet.
So the rental market is terrible. There's a ton of people looking for houses to rent and not enough
Yeah, great if
houses.
you're a landlord. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then when it comes down to it, like if I'm put up against anyone else, I look the worst. You know what I mean? Like there's always going to be someone better than me renting.
Maybe not one time because I have a rental condo. And one time this man and his son applied and he was like, you know what? It's actually going to be great. My son's actually on house arrest. So, like, he would never be leaving. And I
Oh,
was like, oh, that's a way to spin it.
oh my gosh,
So,
that's so funny.
I mean, if it's you and somebody with a adult child on house arrest,
Yeah, I suppose. I guess it's if it's like me versus like someone with like a criminal record or something
yeah.
like that, I'll probably like edge out on that one. But
Or like a single mom with 6 or more kids.
there you go. There you go.
So, there's hope.
Yeah, so far it's not looking great.
Yeah, but your parents are back in town. They winter abroad, and that sounds
in
fancier than it
in
is.
the very exotic Phoenix area.
They're snowbirds, but they're back and they're being very helpful because there's a lot of like packing and making a dump run and organizing. And yeah, I mean, yeah, this is just like a developing saga.
Yeah, so all I'm doing right now is working 5 days a week, and then anytime I have that's not at work, I'm spending, well, let's be honest, I'm doing it at work too, looking for a place to live
Yeah.
or packing or cleaning or decluttering.
I tried texting a few places pretending to be your agent.
Yeah,
They were like, "What do you mean agent?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is just my side business. I like, my clients,
yeah.
plural, are working, and so I just schedule viewings on properties that might be suitable."
I think you found yourself a new business.
But I'm like, "You're hype man to
Yeah,
potential
no, I
landlord."
appreciate it. So far, it's
But
not worked, but
yeah.
what's going on with you?
So this past weekend, it was my stepson's ninth birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was adorable because he's never had like a real birthday party because when he was in kindergarten, like they don't really know. I don't know,
Yeah,
like I guess he kind of had one. And
yeah,
then it was COVID for 2 years, so he couldn't have friends over. And so this was like really where the first one where he could like have invitations and bring them to school and
yeah, yeah.
friends came over and it was like mostly good. I think
Mhm.
that like 8, 7 to 9-year olds is too many to have in one place.
Absolutely.
He had fun, and then his cousin slept over, and we went and saw Sonic 2 in theaters,
Mhm, mhm.
and it was actually a really cute movie. I know nothing about Sonic. I did not see the first one. I never played the video game, but it was like, I'd give it a solid 89% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty good.
it was good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then this morning, things took a turn because he woke up really sick with like a really bad cough and a really snotty nose.
Right, right.
And then we had this like cinematic WWE wrestling battle to try and give him a COVID test.
Okay,
To
were you recording?
No, but after I was like, in hindsight, we really should be recording this. And like he's so tall and skinny like a string bean, but he's strong. So I was trying to like pretzel hold him like how they show you for kids
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
vaccines. Like I'm not new to this. This is not my first rodeo.
No.
But his arms are longer than mine.
Oh my gosh.
So Lindsay's trying to give it. And we started off by being like, I know you don't like this, bud, but like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like we try to really appeal to him and say it's just going to be a minute, but you got to do it. If you want to go to lacrosse later and all this stuff. And there was no go. And so then we had to have the talk that, like, bud, sometimes you got to do things that you don't want to do. And so, like, I'm going to hold you so that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can get this test done. Anyway, two of the three of us ended up sweaty and disheveled looking.
Oh my
Two of the
gosh.
three of us were in tears. And
No kidding.
we did not get a successful COVID test.
My
Yeah,
idea is do it while they're sleeping.
that sounds like the making of a future therapy session.
Like I get that, but it's like their nose is just like wide open,
Yeah,
waiting
they
for
don't
something
know.
to be shoved in there. And then by the time they wake up and realize what's happening, it's already over and you're like, "Okay, thanks. Bye."
Okay, so a couple of thoughts.
Uh-huh.
From a practical standpoint, he sleeps in a loft bed made of metal and it's very squeaky. And I don't know that it's like weight rated for a grown
Um,
adult to climb up this ladder and like find his face.
right, right.
But then also, I feel like I've seen a TLC episode where it's like my strange addiction or something where it's like my irrational fear. And like there was one where like this person had to sleep with like pantyhose over their face because they were worried that bugs were going to crawl in. And
No.
I think that it probably stems from an experience like this.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, so
I
if
mean,
you
I
like get
guess
some
that would
panty.
be tricky. Like the loft bed would be tricky. I would say go in with two swabs and stick them in the nose at the same time so that you
Yeah.
don't have to try to get to the next one, right? Just one big like shot and then you're done.
Oh, but then when he wakes up, do we be like, "Oh my god, bud, you were just fussing, you were crying. What's happening?"
And he's like, my nose hurts.
And we'll be like, "Yeah, you're sick. That's why."
So weird. I don't know.
Don't
Just
we?
like hide the swabs behind your back.
Why don't we have a parenting podcast is my question.
Honestly, I think that we should teach parenting hacks.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't come to
man.
us later when your kids need therapy because we're not responsible for that.
Yeah, but anyway, and then I also I have a stuffy nose and I have a bit of a cough, and so I had a headache all weekend, but I thought it was the weather, but now I'm not sure. So we're
Yeah.
just sort of playing that game of like, is this tickle in my throat because I might have COVID, or is it because it's springtime and maybe I have allergies?
I always like feel I'm like, okay, this is it, like it's coming, and then it
Yeah.
never materializes.
Yeah, like either make me sick or get me better. Like I don't want this
Yeah.
questioning, unsure. I'm like a little tired, but not too tired, like I just
Yeah. And
ah
then do I take a test? Like, do I waste a test? Like what?
yeah.
I
I
don't
mean, these
know.
are valid questions.
I agree.
Oh my god, and
What?
I had to do a Patreon without you.
I haven't listened to it yet because I'm too sad.
Are you serious?
Hmm.
Friend?
I have FOMO.
I know, but I can agree because when my dad died, I had serious FOMO knowing
Hmm.
that you and Justine were interviewing Diana on the Patreon, and I mean, I got to at least edit it, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we had to do a Patreon, and so I reached out to Amanda and Jody from We Love to Hate TV,
Hmm.
and they are lovely and gracious and helpful and so funny. And Jody's like, "Oh, heck yeah, I've got stories." She's like, "I was a surrogate twice." And I was like, "Oh."
That's amazing.
And yeah, they're like two really crazy stories.
That's crazy. I couldn't imagine being a surrogate. Like all the things that happen when you're pregnant and the like bond that you form with the baby and everything. Like I just couldn't imagine
Yeah.
giving that baby away. Like obviously it's not yours, but it's just so
Yeah.
bizarre.
You were just the oven for the bun.
Yeah.
You were just cooking it.
You're just a
keeping it
takeout
warm.
container.
Yeah. Yes. My God. Well, if anybody's listening for the first time and they're like, I don't understand, what are they talking about? Our Patreon is a monthly subscription where you get 2 bonus episodes every month. And it is a great way to support the work that we do. And you get like a little bit extra Michelle and Carling.
Yeah. Little bonus.
Yeah, little bones. Bone. I tried to shorten bonus. It didn't
Oh.
work. Yeah.
Also,
But
can I
anyway,
just say thank you to everyone who has like sent me good wishes, and thanks to all of our podcast friends who have filled in for me, and we just have a really amazing podcast community.
yeah, we
There's
do.
one more thing that we have to share.
What?
We were in a magazine.
Oh my God. Can you believe it? We were featured. We are being featured
No,
in the 1 year edition, the April edition of Women in Podcasting magazine.
I know. It was so awesome.
Like,
We were interviewed, and yeah, we're part of like this couple other podcasts that were featured for their 1 year anniversary.
yeah. And it's like, I don't, it just seems so crazy because it's like, sure, it's like kind of a niche magazine, but
Hmm.
can you hear that sound?
No, what is it?
Oh, there's a dog scratching behind me. And yeah, they're out of California is where they make their publishing stuff. Where they're
We know
they're
so much about magazines.
yeah, it's a digital magazine and they are out of California. And what an honor. Like it just seems I'm just so blown away. I'm so appreciative of the
I
acknowledgement.
know. It's amazing.
We're amazing.
I know.
Oh man. I okay, is there anything else?
I don't think so. I
All
think that's
right.
all.
Well, let's get to it then. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hello, Justin.
Hello.
How are
How
you?
are you guys? I
Good.
I am doing well. Yourselves?
Good.
Good.
I
Very
know
good.
our hellos always feel awkward because we talk for a few minutes before we officially start anyway. So it always feels like a little bit funny. But yeah, well, thank you so much for being on our show today. We've been really looking forward to talking with you.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. Unexpected pleasure, but pleasure nonetheless. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start? We found you on TikTok as we find a lot of our guests. So why don't we start by just having you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and your family and what you do, and then we'll kind of get into why we reached out.
Okay. Well, my name is Justin Nuckles. I am first and foremost, I'm a husband and a father. I have a fantastic, wonderful wife and 4 beautiful daughters. And yeah, I as far as professionally and background, I work kind of parallel to DCFS. So I don't work for DCFS, but I do work for someone who holds a contract with them. So I see a wide spread of humanity kind of just in the day to day.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
but yeah, then as far as I don't know if you want to jump into TikTok right now or where
Yeah,
you
like
want to.
we came across you posted one like a just a video saying stitch this and tell me I'm forgetting the exact words about why you were taught to stay in groups as a
Okay, yeah,
female.
so I've had, oh boy, this has gotten so much bigger than I ever thought it would. But yeah, so that video, you just hit the nail right on the head. So I basically had a short video clip where I just said like, oh, I was having a conversation with my wife and we were talking about it, and we had this realization together, and I just wanted to ask, stitch this and tell me why, when you were a young girl, did you travel everywhere in groups? And boy, like people, I just got such a wide variety of responses in terms, not in terms of like the actual responses, but the tone. Like it was really interesting. I had everything from like on one end of the continuum, I had those who were like, oh, like thank you for asking, it's so good to have a man, so nice to have a man like trying to be aware of these things, like clear over to the other side of the continuum where I had people like mad at me and like, why would you even have to ask this? I'm ashamed of humanity.
Oh
Like,
no.
Oh,
and so
no.
it was really interesting, but it was kind of funny because the conversation that we had, because I've been thinking about this, kind of stuff and learning more about this kind of stuff. Really, I mean, it's kind of been a master class that I just unexpectedly got in the middle of when I joined TikTok a few months ago. But my wife and I were having a conversation about this because, as parents, like, of course, we teach our children, like, okay, like, travel in groups, don't go, don't be alone, like, even if you're at a friend's house, like, don't be alone in the room, like, I mean, it's just what we teach our children, right? It's just awareness and not kind of risk management techniques, kind
Mhm.
of thing. But we had never, and I especially, but my wife also, as we were talking about it, we had never connected our, like, the why of why we were telling our kids these things. We never connected that to our lived experience as children. And so, like, realizing from this side of it, like, oh, that's why. Because I,
Mhm.
thinking back to, and again, like, this was part of the conversation that my wife and I had, was me thinking back to my experience as, as a young boy, like in elementary school, for example. I can remember thinking about and noticing, like, that the girls never went anywhere. And right now I read every night to my girls before they go to bed, and we've been reading through the Harry Potter books, and so many times in even just the Harry Potter books, it mentions it, that I never saw it. I never,
Wow.
like, they travel in groups and they
Yeah.
never go to the bathroom alone, and when they're
Yeah.
alone, like, these bad things happen. But anyway, so as a young boy, I saw that, and the narrative that was pushed, by the teachers, and was never contradicted, at least that I remember, was that girls are they're just so chatty, they're just
Yeah.
Mhm.
so such chatterboxes, right? That they can't even go to the bathroom alone because they've got to be talking, and
Yes.
that was the narrative that I was just like, oh yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. Like, girls, I know girls who talk a lot, like, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, and it did become a joke, like, in school or even in, like, TV shows or movies that you watch about girls going to the washroom together, like, you can never
Yeah,
just go to the washroom without your buddy, right? And
Yeah.
or even as girls, we would stand up and be like, "Hey, I'm going to the washroom, like, who's coming with me?" So, it's
right.
just kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we never, I guess, yeah, like, you don't really think about why is this a thing? What
Yeah,
is the actual reason behind it?
Yeah.
exactly. And that was what kind of, and I hesitate to use this word anymore because, again, this is another thing that I like, the audacity of my being surprised in this day and
Yeah.
age,
Yeah.
which, like, granted, like, and I, I when I speak of, people who meet, kind of have met what I'm doing with anger, I can understand it.
Yeah.
I can certainly appreciate it now more than ever, right? Like, with the
Mhm.
understanding that I'm the increasingly each and every day building, I get it. Like, I can understand better now why there is such anger
Mhm.
from, so many of these women who this is their experience, and to have a man like, oh, just now realizing it,
Right.
I can appreciate that anger. I
Yeah.
Right.
can
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that.
It's so funny because you're coming by it so earnestly, just being like, you're trying to educate yourself and you're just wanting to know, like, what is your experience? So you can definitely appreciate why women would be like, why are you asking us this now? You are educating yourself because you have your wife and your four daughters. Like, it is important for men to figure out, but it's not going to be an easy journey for you.
Right, right. No,
Yeah.
and it hasn't. It hasn't. I mean, again, I mean, you get all kind. I mean, I get literally on the same video. Like, I'm thinking of another one that I released where, so on several of my videos, I had women asking, like, offering and saying, like, you need to ask us, like, the next thing you need to ask is, how old were we? How old were we when
Right.
these things
Yeah.
started happening? And for the
Right.
longest time, I was just like, no, like, that is
Yeah.
definitely, like, not even my place. But I mean, I was shocked because there was one video where someone made that, kind of made that comment, and it just kept accumulating likes. I mean,
Mhm.
to the point, I went the other day, and I was going back and trying to find that comment to see just what it's at. But I mean, it was, well, I mean, hundreds and hundreds,
Mhm.
many,
Yeah.
many hundreds of women support, like, saying, that same thing and liking and supporting that same thing. And so finally I was like, okay, I'll ask it, but I need to preface it with like,
Yeah.
please, like, don't feel like you have to. I
Mhm.
still feel like this isn't my place, but enough, like, because enough people, enough women said you need to ask this. Those who can will, those who
Yeah.
Yeah.
won't, like, will not. But you need to know. You need to ask this. And so I was like, okay.
I think there's
So
something powerful in being asked the question by the type of the perpetrator, not that you're the perpetrator.
completely understand.
Yeah, and so there's something powerful because like I said before we started recording, we do have these conversations with women all the time about being safe, me too, all this stuff, but like we're just preaching to the choir, it feels like, where when somebody says like, why is this, it tells me that you're open to hearing, why this experience happened, or it's wild. Did you and your wife often have these conversations about this topic, or like women's rights and all of this stuff, or was your wife suddenly like, Justin, you need to open your eyes, enough with your male privilege?
No, that's a very good question. So my wife and I, we, for a long time, we have, and I hate to say this because it sounds really pompous for me to say it. Like we have a really good relationship. We had that we I mean we really really work hard at like communicating with each other and talking. Like one of, I mean, we have a few like ground rules, if you will, but one of them is like we always assume the best. Assume that the person did not, if there's a bad way to take it, like assume that they meant the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
But like when that happens, and I've been really appreciative of her, like if one of us says something that does come off that way, like again, we assume the best, but we still bring it up and talk about it. And so
Right.
like, hey, like you said this, and I think that you didn't mean it this way, but this, just so you know, kind of thing. And to be completely frank, most of it does tend to be like her educating me, like, hey, you said this. This is why it was hurtful. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that is not, point well taken. Point well
Yeah.
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, we try and have tried. I mean, over the last, let's see, what year is it? Coming up on 12 years
Mm.
of marriage. That's been something that we've really, really put a lot of effort into, is just kind of the strength of our communicating back and forth, and our relationship. And we have a really great relationship in that regard. As far as your question about like specifically conversations around issues like women's rights and feminism, we haven't had as many conversations direct. I mean, as far as like really like just, I would say that we've had conversations about topics that like are naturally included in that, different facets of it. But as far as like, all right, let's talk about feminism, let's talk about
Yeah.
women's rights, not as much. So no, it's just, and obviously with with 4 daughters in the house, I mean we're very woman friendly in this
Yeah.
house. The conversations and the terminology and just everything and the topics and subjects, like we're very open. We've tried to really create a really really open dialogue as far as what it's like to be a girl, and I mean in
Yeah.
everything, and just
Yeah.
everything that it seems like we're just always talking about it. And even for her, it's been really interesting to go through it kind of with her, because again, we're talking about it all the time together.
Yeah.
And going through with her, she had, in her upbringing, she had enough of kind of a safe space. I mean, she grew up in a really really safe family. I mean, just thinking back to her, her own family experiences, again, her in conversations together, she'll think back to her experience, and like so many of the experiences that we hear about, she's just like, that was not my experience at all.
Mhm.
Wow.
As far as within family relationships. But it's
Yeah.
been interesting to talk about like some of the things and issues that happen outside of families, as far as just like catcalling or different things. Like we were talking just the other day, and she was like, oh man, this totally brought up, and she had a memory of a boy in the neighborhood that she had an interaction with, and how her brother actually, like, when she went home crying, told her brother, and her brother went and like just had it out with this guy, and was just like totally getting after him for it. It's been both of us. We just had enough of a similar background and experience growing up that for both of us, Like it's really like, okay, like calling a spade a spade. Okay, now I can see these patterns. And again, we grew up in a culture where this stuff, I mean, assuredly, it was assuredly happening, but it was not talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if and when it was happening, like it was very like you don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think a lot too of it is that when it is brought up with men, the first instinct is, well, not me. So then it's like, okay, well, the conversation's not going to go any farther because no, I'm not specifically talking about you, but this is my experience as a woman. This is what I've dealt with. This is what men have done to me in the past. Let's have a conversation about it instead of the immediate defense, you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
that's what it's kind of met with, right? Is this defensiveness.
How do you not put that defense up? How do you hear these stories, or how do you have your wife educate you?
Oh man. So I mean, this has been it's such an interesting question because it's such an analogous experience. Like over the last several years, I mean, specifically, it's such an analogous and parallel experience with like questions of race and racism. Like it's the exact same process. I mean, it's a different topic, but it's the exact same. It's a different lane on the exact same highway. But no, I actually I very was very much in that camp, and I actually had a video kind of explaining this process too on TikTok. But that not all men experience, right? Like oh
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
me, not
Yeah.
me. I'm a good guy, right? Oh
Yeah.
man. So no, I totally I had that experience. I mean, that was me even just a couple of years ago. I had an experience where, and this was just kind of a boiling pot. My whole life has just kind of been setting me up to like be more receptive to this stuff. I feel like, especially now, like looking back on, because I've been thinking so much about this question of like, how do we get other men here, right? How do we
Yeah.
get like how do we recreate this? I've been thinking about it so much. But there are a few like little points, little critical points where I feel like there was a lot of progress made in the right direction for me personally. And one of those came several years ago when a friend, it was actually the sibling of a friend that I went to school with, shared an experience that she had recently had being sexually assaulted, and not in detail, but just I mean the emotions, right? Just the emotions of experiencing that. You know, she kind of shared some of it on Facebook, and then there was a comment from a woman I didn't even know. I have no idea to this day. I went back and tried to find the post and find the comment to really like because I had people asking like, what was it? Like we got to what was the formula? You know, like we got to recreate this. We got to duplicate it. So I went back and was trying to find it, and the post had since been taken down for whatever reason. So I wasn't able to find the exact comment. But the spirit of the words, she basically said, okay, if there are any men that have even read this far in this conversation, you need to take a good look at yourself because this is not an isolated experience.
Mm-hmm.
And these men are your past selves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know why, but that hit me so hard in that moment. Like I said, I think that was in 2020. So it's been literally a couple of years. And at that point, I was just like, oh my word. And so at that point, I actually went back and I contacted like just some of the girls that I've had relationships with, you know, over my life. And I was just like, hey, this is gonna be really out of the blue and please like forgive me, don't feel like you owe me a response, but like did I ever do anything or say anything around you or to you that made you feel unsafe? I just went back and I had that conversation with them, and it because it's scary. Like I mean, you talk about, you know,
Mhm.
that defensiveness comes up because it's scary to consider the alternative. And so
Yeah.
it was nerve-wracking to ask these, you know, these women that I had you know, a relationship with as a young man, to ask them, what was that like for you?
And
Like
did you
did
get any surprising answers?
you know, you never know. And I've learned, this is something that I've learned in relationship with women in relationship with men. There's always, it breaks my heart to realize this truth, but there's always like this hesitance
Mhm.
to, as far as like, can I tell them the honest answer? Like,
Yeah.
what is their response? going to be. And I
Absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
the response that I got from these girls were like, "Oh no, like it was never like that," which only makes me, in all honesty, only makes me all the more because now I know, and I'm just like, "Oh man." So I mean, they said no, like it was never like that, but oh, and again, like thinking back to it, I'm like, man, did I? What about like was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
How was that really received? You know what I mean? So yeah, but I mean, I have definitely had this conversation with my wife too, and it's just so
Yeah.
I
it's
think like
hard.
we've
It's
all
hard.
done and said things in our past that we don't say now because we know better, right? We've educated ourselves, but there are, instances in probably junior high, high school, early 20s where we're saying things that are inappropriate, that are, possibly homophobic, ableist, all this stuff. And now that we know better, we're doing better.
I was just gonna say my favorite
Yeah.
motto lately has been
Yeah.
do your best until you know better
Yeah.
and then do better.
Yes, that's me as well.
So much still defensiveness, especially I feel like in our parents' generation, where it's like, well, it was fine to say it then, like what's the problem, like everyone's too sensitive these days. And it's like, no, everyone is learning better and educating themselves, and the people who have been affected are communicating that with us and saying, listen, this is not okay, this does hurt our community, and you need to stop. And we can't just ignore those people. We need to be listening to them and understand that what they're saying is the truth, and we need to do better.
I find it so interesting. Like, it feels like our generation is so responsible to sort of like change this generational trauma
Mhm.
in how, you know, like males are raised and expectations put on them. Because like I remember being told like, oh, like he's just pinching you because he likes you. I can very clearly think back to then when I was going to, when I was 18 or maybe 17 with a fake ID at a club and being aggressively pursued by a male,
Mhm.
and all of my peers being like, "Oh my god, he just likes you so much." And then like you just sort of feel like,
Get us
"Oh,
a free drink.
yeah, like, oh, maybe he'll buy me a drink." It becomes
Yeah.
this like transactional, I don't know, but like
Yeah.
now if somebody were to do that to me, I'd probably throat punch them. And so like now we're having kids. Well, I don't have kids, but I'm, in lives of kids, and I am forever perplexed of like, how do I take your 5-year-old Jude and not let him become an asshole?
Yeah.
I just swore, and that's against our pod. Like, how do I not let you become this like white cis het privileged male?
Mhm.
And I don't know, but like here we are raising kids, hoping, because yeah, I've
Hoping
had
our generation is doing a little bit better, right?
like my dad just passed away recently, but he was a really good example. He was in his 60s, and we butt heads because I called him out on everything. And like one time we were at the dog park and he threw a ball and he's like, I throw like a girl. And I was like, oh, do you mean really strong and fast and powerfully? And he's like, oh, and then he like walked away. And I was like, but why would you say that? I called him out
Yeah.
every time about these things. And he was like, well, that's not a big deal. That's silly. That's,
Yeah. We've always said that. It's fine.
To you,
Yeah.
right? And it's silly to you because you're the one that doesn't have the boot on the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you share
Yeah.
that video? I swear, I just saw the video that was like, feminism is like having a.
I don't think I've been tagged in it several times, and
Oh, okay.
it's very prevalent and present
Yeah.
in my mind right now. But it's very powerful. It's so very true. Like there are so many things. Again, we've talked about it, as a cis het white male, like that don't seem like a big deal, and it's
Yeah.
not a hey, it's of course it's not a big deal to you or to
Yeah.
me, right? As a cishet white male,
Yeah.
like of course it's not a big deal to me, but like that's because I'm not a woman, I'm not a person of color, I'm
Yeah.
not a person with an invisible disability, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just it's been interesting to see the different, and oh boy, there's so much here.
I know
Uh,
there's a lot to unpack there.
really is. I'm just thinking now about some of the reaction, just some of the response to videos. At this point, as far as my direct followers on TikTok, the last time I checked, I think I'm at like 97% female, according to,
Wow.
TikTok's binary.
Yeah.
97% female. So there's not a lot of men, but it's interesting because the response from men that I get on my videos, as opposed to the response that women, creators
Mm-hmm.
on TikTok who are women who are saying virtually the same things just from
Yeah.
the opposite viewpoint, is horrifying. Basically,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a word, it's horrifying because I on my videos, like, I will get the occasional guy that drops in to drop his thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, all right, like, I'll give him a couple of tries, and if it's just like strike after strike, I baseball rules, right? Three
Yeah.
strikes, you're out, homeboy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we don't need that. But boy, on some of these other on these women creators pages, I mean, the hateful and just backward and ignorant responses
Mm-hmm.
made by some of these men is just, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an algorithm thing. I don't know if TikTok is like just more intentionally like feeding the
Yeah.
women's controversial things to more of the men, or
Yeah.
what it
Probably.
is. And mine is just like, oh well, let's just feed it to the women kind of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what it is. Or I just don't know if it's just because I'm a white male saying it, again, specifically a uh, cisgender heterosexual. I don't know that we've put those broad.
Oh
There was a
yeah,
long
that's
time I
true.
didn't know what those meant.
Yeah.
Cisgender heterosexual white male. I don't know if it's just a comfort level of like them not being able to confront me, or again, if it's
Right.
just not being, if my voice is just not one that's being put in front of them. I
Yeah.
don't know, but it's it's so
It's scary
frustrating.
because the men that are commenting these horrible things, they're again about our generation and are having these kids. And so
Yeah.
Michelle's oldest is 13, goes by they, them pronouns, and has come out as bi and is in grade 7. And so they're in a new school. It's a Catholic school, and they're getting the students are using the F word and they've been physically assaulted and, all this stuff. The school itself is great and the
Yeah.
teachers are educating themselves and the teachers are doing better. But what I said in sort of in an argument to switch them schools, I said it's not the school. The school is great. It's the students are coming from homes that are probably using the F word and saying those derogatory terms and making fun of people they see in media. And so it's like the school can be great, but then they go home and their parents are raising these little jerks. And that's what I feel is like so hard because yeah, how do we break that?
Yeah. It's
Like do better, parents.
it's funny because we have, like, when my husband was alive, we were, you know, going to church, going to, probably very much on the like heterosexual train
Yeah.
with our children. Like we were never derogatory towards LGBTQ community, but like we also didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about different kinds of relationships. We didn't talk about different kinds of genders. But now we talk about it all the time. And there's so much more representation out there for people, even on television, on cartoons, on Disney. Like there's stuff there that is just normal now. And so our children feel more comfortable talking to us about it. And so I think there needs to be more normalization in things that are going on with women and things that women go through. My child the other day asked me, like, have you ever had a guy like inappropriately interact with you? Right. And like, not in a weird way, but I was like, yeah, I had a boss who was inappropriate. And they're like, well, how? And I was like, he'd press his body up against me and tell me how good I smelled. And it's like, I was 19.
Yeah.
I was working in a kitchen and he was my boss. And my child was like, did you report them? I'm like, no, like, because I was 19 and they were my boss and they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, taking advantage of, I mean, what really boils down to innocence and naivety, or if I've
Mm.
said that right, being naive.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, taking advantage of that expectation that, well, like what are they gonna? They won't know how to respond, right?
Yeah.
They don't know that there's I mean, what sexual harassment, policies and workplaces are. They don't know that they can go to, that they can report that. All
Yeah.
they know is that I'm the boss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very cultural, as far as like respect your elders. And when you go to a boss, be a good employee, do what the boss tells you and listen and don't talk back. And so, yeah, like in a lot of ways, we are socializing. Yeah,
I know, it's
socializing, yeah,
awful.
for perpetrators to take advantage of children in some situations. It's
Yeah.
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 Do you guys talk about how do you raise your daughters to not feel like they have to walk in groups, not feel like they have to do all of these things, walk with their keys in their hands? And, I think about all the things I do, even if I go to my garage at night,
Mhm.
I'm ready to be attacked. And when I break it down and think about it, I'm like, that's crazy. I live in a very suburban,
Yeah.
high traffic, but I joke that like when the doorbell rings, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get murdered. And
But
because
these are just things that we subconsciously do though too. Like I'm just thinking back now. I remember when I was in college, when I would walk late at night to my car, I would call my boyfriend who, became my husband and just chatted with them. And I wasn't like, I'm going to call him so that if I'm on the phone and I get attacked,
there's a witness,
somebody
like,
will hear me. That wasn't going through my head, but it was like this subconscious thing where it's like, I'm walking to my car alone, I'm going to call somebody. And so because we've been taught that stuff, it just becomes second nature. But then you think about it and you're like, wait, why am I doing this? Like you just don't think about it until you actually think about it. And you're like, wait a second. Like I shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be afraid that somebody like a man can come out and attack me.
yeah.
Yeah, that level of metacog. What did we learn in sixth grade? Metacognition, right? Thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
Is so it's so rare. It's just so
Mhm.
rare because it's just so, like you said, it's so entrenched in just our everyday experience
Yeah.
that, like, why would I stop and think about why they, like, it's just I do. And in our society, like, we're just go 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 do all the time. That
Yeah.
it's just to really sit and think, like, now why did I just do what I just did?
Yeah.
It's very uncommon.
And like as a man, is there anything that you can think of that you do either consciously or subconsciously to protect yourself from,
It's interesting that you bring this up because my wife and I were having a conversation. When was it? Oh, we were driving. We were on our way. We were driving on vacation to Memphis, and we had this conversation about Inside Out, the movie Inside Out.
Mhm.
And I was noticing that the different like her parents in the movie, her parents have different people in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
As far as, like, the main emotion, right? And for her dad, I think it was anger. For her
Mhm.
mom, it was sadness. And so my wife and I were just having this conversation around, like, who do you think is in your driver's seat? Or who? And so we went through and we had this conversation, and she was like, well, who's in mine? From your perspective, who's in mine? And I was like, oh, well, that's easy. Yours is Joy. Like,
Yeah.
Joy is in your driver's seat.
Yeah.
Easy,
Yeah.
easy. And I was like, so who do you think is in mine? Because it's hard to think about yourself from a outside perspective. But she was like, oh, well, that's easy. And I was like, really? Who? She's like, fear.
Mm.
And I was like, what? And she was like, well, you're Mr. Preparedness. You're Mr. Preparedness.
Oh.
And so it's interesting that you should ask this question, because I think now, I don't know if it's a response to you or if it's just like, but men, this is among, like, the real manly men
Yeah.
of the man community, right?
Yeah.
It's like situational awareness and watch your six and always on the ready, have your everyday carry and all this stuff. So it's funny that those same men, and again, it's a we. It's not a like, oh, like those men. Like, it's a we. Like, I as a man, I mean, this was me up until too recently. Like, well, why?
Yeah.
Why do we have to always be, depending on how your stance on firearms and whatever, like, carry a firearm, always be
Yeah.
armed, always ready. Like, well, why?
Mhm.
From whom?
Mhm.
Who are we protecting ourselves and our families from? Like,
The
let's
bears.
connect these dots here,
Yeah.
guys. Like,
Yeah.
we and so it's interesting, like, so to more directly answer your original question, like, do I do things, like, yeah, like, for a long time, like, I mean, I watch out and I'm always on the guard because, like, again, I mean, having daughters and a wife especially, like I just always feel and have felt for much longer than I became aware of, all the question of women's rights and feminism and everything. Like that was the role as a man, right? Was to protect. Well, I think we're so stuck in that, like, protect, yeah, you're ready to do harm after harm is done kind of thing, that we don't, again, stop and think, like, okay, stop and think through that way of thinking. Protect from whom?
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing I can think of though while you're saying that is that, are you protecting your children and your wife from other men? Is that your purpose of
Yeah.
fear and your purpose of being aware? Is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's like men are taught to be fearful and be prepared to protect others first, but women and girls are taught to first protect self.
but it's from the same source.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had this interesting thought and I don't know where it fits, so I'll just put it in here. But before I knew I was a lesbian, we would always go out dancing and we loved going to the gay bar because, and the men that were with us hated going to the gay bar because they were fearful that they would be hit on and assaulted by men. But women wanted to go because we felt safe and there was much less chance
To
of
be
being
assaulted
by men.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just like,
they get it.
I thought of it and I was like, oh my God.
They understand completely.
Yeah, I remember being with a few guys and they were like, no, like they're going to think we're gay. I don't want to get hit on. I don't want to go into the bathroom and get assaulted. And now I wish I could teleport back to that and be like, this is why we travel in groups and don't go to the bathroom. I don't know. It's like, it's so interesting and it's terrifying. And yeah, I feel like I'm constantly having these thoughts in my head of like, how do I not, I have a stepson who's 8 and your youngest is 5. And so it's like, how do I be a part of their lives and make sure that they don't turn into privileged white cishet assholes? I keep saying that word. Anyway, I'll blurb it out. But also I am just as much thinking, how do I make sure that your 3 daughters and my 11-year-old stepdaughter and my niece and all this stuff don't experience the assault and discomfort and all this stuff that I had to experience. And it's like, I don't know what the answer is, but it's terrifying.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. That's something that's on my mind, like all the time, again, especially with 4 daughters.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about, like, and especially recently, like with, not terribly recently anymore. I mean, it's been in the last year or two, but just some of the cases in the news about, just intimate partner violence and these
dating
just
violence,
horrible cases. And just thinking through, like, man, like who is out there for my daughters to end up with, And it's just like, if they end up being heterosexual, like, what are their options going to be?
Yeah.
And so that's, part of this transformation, I'll admit, is very selfish in origin, because like, I feel like I have to share this you used the term awakening earlier. I have to share this awakening because it needs to happen for more men. Otherwise, who are my daughters? Who are my daughters? And that's horribly selfish. I'm absolutely ashamed of the fact that had to be one of the driving impetuses of this change. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating, but it's my reality. If I can make the journey that's happened for me, if I can make that road smoother or faster or more efficient for even just one other man, like, that's worth it to me. And I've been really encouraged, especially just in the last probably week or so, because in the beginning it was very much like every time, as I would scroll through my notifications, like, oh, like all these women, a lot of LGBTQ plus community members, a lot of rainbow flags on a lot of the profiles that I looked at as far as following me and stuff. But just in the last week, even, I've been really, really encouraged by how many men, by how many people with he, him as their pronouns on TikTok have started following me. And so I'm just like, yes, please, like, come on.
I just think what you're doing is really important. And I think, we always talk about educating women about, like, don't walk alone, don't wear this, don't wear that, don't drink too much, don't, we're teaching women not to get raped. What are we teaching men?
Yeah, like,
which
Hey, boys, let's not rape.
yeah, instead of saying, women, you're going to want to go out and have fun and party, you could get raped. This is what you have to do to stop it. It needs to flip.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so true because as a young man, thinking back to again to experiences that I've had just kind of across my lifespan up to this point, like it's so very common, and I can remember being like going to like different retreats as a teenager and them offering like self defense classes, and like the guys would participate and were invited to participate, encouraged to be there and stuff, but it was so much like focused on the girls that I was just like, oh man, like why are we even here? Like this is for the girls, this is for the girls, and the way that it was presented. Like it was always in this context of like, oh, the faceless, nameless stranger who just randomly assaults you. And like, that's not reality. Like those happen. The comparison of how often that happens as opposed to like a dating relationship or a very intimate partner relationship and violence, like that conversation is not happening. I had actually gone through my bachelor's degree, gotten my master's degree and was actually like taking some additional courses just to kind of round some stuff out for me myself. And oh my word, we had just as part of, I can't even remember the setting of which class it was, but there was a kind of a guest presentation of the local domestic violence shelter. And they gave a presentation that was like for the first like 2 minutes, they were like, all right, here's something that's really commonly presented. It's like the 10 commandments of preventing sexual assault. And it was like geared toward the women, like, all right, don't be out late, da 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 da, and went through these 10 different steps, and they were like, this is bull crap. And I was just like, excuse me.
You were like taking notes. You're like,
yeah, I was like, wait, but this is solid advice. Like, why? What do you mean? What do you mean? And they were like, okay, we're going to go through the real 10 commandments of preventing sexual assault. And it was geared toward men.
Yes.
Wow.
The perpetrators. Don't assault people while they're walking to their car in the parking lot. And I can just remember sitting in the audience of this presentation. I was on like the first or second row, and my mouth fell open because I had never, not once in my life up to that point had I heard it presented from that paradigm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I felt so bad for these presenters because I'm pretty sure that I laughed at one point.
Yeah.
Because it was just so like, that's my reaction when things like are mind blowing to me, like I laugh because it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why have I not seen it that way? And so I laughed. And one of the presenters was just like giving me this stink eye because I'm sure she thought I was like mocking her to this day. Because in that moment, my mind was blown.
Yeah.
Because I had never heard it presented from that way. Like, men, don't be this person.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why are we having this conversation?
I actually think that we as a society in school never learned about intimate partner violence. What does abuse look like? How to get out of it if you're in a close relationship and there's abuse. And I ended up being in a very abusive relationship. And never once did I feel like I had the skills or the knowledge or to how to get out of it. I literally had to wait until it was life or death. And then I got out of it. But I'm sure your kids are sick to death of me talking about healthy relationships because I talk about it so much because I want them to yes, be nervous that you might get attacked in a parking lot. But also, if you're in a relationship, here is what is considered toxic.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The conversation, talking to the upcoming generation and being open with things and inviting questions and conversations is so important. And in our family, we just recently instituted something that I just loved the first time that I heard it. It was basically this idea of we have a chair now in our house that if the kids come and they sit in that chair and they say, hey, I need to talk to you, I'm in the white computer chair, like we know as parents, like, okay, incoming, we need I need to extra pay attention, I need to extra self-regulate because what they're about to tell me is something that they are nervous to bring to me, but they need to bring to me. I need to bring my A game.
Wow.
And and it's been so cool. The first experience was something really funny. It was like my daughter, my oldest, sat down and she was like, okay, I have to tell you something. Several years ago, I drank straight from the milk bottle.
And
And
she's
we're like,
had
oh,
that like on her
yeah, like I was
shoulders.
wearing on her chest. But I was just like, hey, I'm so glad. You know,
That's so
what a
funny.
great way to open it up. Thank you. Thank you for, for initiating this. So it was just so funny to hear what was weighing on her soul at the moment. But no, like just
Oh my
Mhm.
creating
God.
this space and like permission, like that hard conversations are not only allowed but encouraged. And if it's something that you are
Mhm.
genuinely
Yeah.
nervous about how we're going to respond, like that's okay. Here's how you can ask for a little bit of extra from us, and that we know, like this is to prep us for that experience, right? So it's been really really beneficial. And we've already had like our girls bring stuff like that they heard in their friend group or something, this
Mhm.
happened in this relationship, or this happened to me, and they brought that stuff to us. And so no, like it's so important this generation going forward that we talk about stuff.
And it's, if you have a friend or a family member, whoever is coming to you and saying, listen, the way that you're saying that, or the way that you're, teaching that or thinking about that is not right. From my perspective as a woman, as, part of the LGBTQ, as a different race, like that is not okay. And to kind of sit with that and be like, okay, I'm wrong. As uncomfortable as that feels, you just need to go through it and
Yeah.
be open and listen to the right way and do better.
That just made me think, have you had the opportunity in person to call out other cis white het males in your life, either in public or your family? Because I think sometimes calling out family and friends can be hard.
All right. I have been more aware of it now. Like, so one of the few settings that I actually like actually have encounters and interactions with with other men at this point, because for work I work again on a team that is entirely women. I am the only man on my team. So as far as the workplace and everything, like that's it just doesn't happen. Within friend group, I'm more aware. But then like especially church, like we go to church, and there are men at church and stuff. And like even just today, like I was sitting, I mean, you see I'm still wearing my white shirt and my tie. I was sitting in this group of men, and it's just always there now, like this lens that I have, and I can't and don't want to take off. It's always there. And so just like listening through this lens, there were a few times that I was like, is that like if he were to say any more, do you know what I mean? Like just as an example, like there was one guy at one point there was an ice cream shop that opened up in a little town where we are, and it was the grand opening, and one of the men was talking about how his wife wanted to go. And so how did he put it? He said, I didn't get any, or I didn't eat any ice cream. And someone was like, well, why'd you go then? And I was just like, and he was like, well, you know how it is when the wife wants it. And he just kind of shrugged. And I was just
Oh.
like,
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
because again, like even to take that any, like you could take it either direction. Like on the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
hand, like yes, I do what my wife wants because I want my wife to be happy, and it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
taking her to an ice cream shop. Like what is that inconvenience?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like you could just as easily finish that like with this. She's just this awfully sexist
Yeah,
statement
yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
wah wah wah, gotta keep the nag off the back, right? So I mean, it's close, and I'm always aware of it now. So I haven't
Yeah.
like yeah.
I do want to ask, just as we kind of wrap up. So you're an author, and you actually started TikTok because you're an author, and that was sort of your goal of starting TikTok, was to sort of get it out there. So what do you write? What are your books? Like, how can people find that work?
Yeah, so my first book it's on Amazon for pre-order right now. I just finally got the all the cover art and stuff, so I it's actually there. You can actually see the cover and everything, which is exciting. But yeah, so my first book it's called Mythic Revealed. It's kind of like a science fiction. It's got people with abilities, so kind of like superhero-esque, but not necessarily like, I mean, they're not in capes. It's just people like people with abilities. But this book, they say write what you know. So it's a book about a young man who he's kind of found a niche for himself. He's in college. He's got a life path, a life path ahead of him that he thinks he's going to enjoy and everything. And his life is just kind of turned upside down when his parents call him on the phone, and they tell him that he has to come home, that they need him to come home. And when he gets back home to the town that he grew up in, his parents have been murdered, and he finds himself like having to be caregiver for these 4 children that he's never met, that like, and it's just kind of this unfolding. It's not a mystery, but the reader is very much discovering what's happening as James is his name, the main
Oh,
character.
wow.
So yeah, and it's just kind of his unfolding, like discovering more about like his parents are not necessarily who he thought they were, and like who are these kids, and there are other people kind of after these kids, and suddenly there are people with abilities, and so his kind of unfolding. So it's fun. It's science fiction. I have that. I actually have the sequel, and then I'm working on the third book for that one right now. But yeah, I have a few fantasy books kind of in mind that I've got partially finished. My shiny object syndrome
Yeah, yeah.
has a few unfinished projects right now. But yeah, the first one's up on Amazon.
Oh, that's awesome.
You can find it under Justin K. Nuckles.
Wow. When does it, so it's up for pre-order. When does it
So
get released?
it releases on April 26th, my
Oh,
birthday.
wow. Oh, that's so nice. Where do you want TikTok to go? Because it kind of
Really?
took a sharp left turn.
Yeah, no, it really has. Because like I said, I mean, I started out on there to market books, and then kind of found that this niche of men writing women badly, and was horrified at what I found there, and the rabbit hole just got deeper and deeper from there, and now I find myself an accidental feminist.
Yeah. That's your next book, The Accidental Feminist.
Absolutely.
Men, let's do better.
At this point, I don't have any like solid like, oh, okay, this is where TikTok's going to go. It's just kind of continuing to be this basically just this documenting journey of my evolution as a human being, specifically again as a cishet white male, and just becoming more aware of it, and like even just in the last couple of days, stepping in on TikTok, and like there is no shortage of other men on TikTok just saying deplorable, awful things about women, and just like calling it out and addressing it, like this is not okay, is kind of currently where I'm at. And, amplifying women's voices, sharing some of these experiences that obviously that I get permission to share, but again, just amplifying, because as men, and again as a cishet white male, it is too easy to just sit in my privilege and not have the luxury, have the privilege of not having to address it head on.
Yeah.
Because I can look away, and so that's the comfortable thing to do, is simply to just turn and not even look at it. And like, we need to stop looking away.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is you could easily say not all men and then never talk about it again because it's not you. Yeah.
My gosh. Well, thank you so much. This has been really nice. We just like love these types of conversations.
Absolutely.
Well, likewise, I appreciate even just the invitation is goodness, so kind. I just feel, again, there's just always so much, like, I appreciate it. I mean, the kindness of women and feminine presenting people that I've encountered, even just on TikTok, I mean, yourselves included. But at the same time, there's just like this other side to it, that the bar is so low. The bar is so low that someone who even just like even just the bare minimum feels like there's just like this fantastic unicorn. So like, thank you for your kindness, but I'm so sorry that it's so uncommon that you feel like that out of the way kindness is warranted and deserving of particular recognition.
I think that's so funny. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
That's going to be the title of this episode. Thank you, and I'm sorry, with Justin.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
So yeah, there's another sound on TikTok where it's like, wow, the bar is so much lower than I ever expected. Like it is, and we just have to raise the bar and that we have on for men.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for making time for us, and say thanks to your wife for, I imagine, like managing all 4 kids by herself out there.
Holding down the fort.
Awesome. Well, have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carlin.
I'm just going to say it.
What are you going to say?
Oh my God, Justin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin.
What a just solid guy.
Solid guy with a
I
solid
mean,
bow tie.
we have a sticker that says, ugh, men. It does not apply to him.
No, it does not.
I want to
Ugh,
change the
men,
sticker to
except for
be like,
Justin.
yeah, ugh, men, but not Justin. So if I don't know, I'm excited to hear what people thought of this episode
Yeah,
because,
me too.
yeah, it was really lighthearted, but still talking about an important topic.
Absolutely. I thought it was great.
I think you're great.
Aw, thanks.
And I think it would be great if any potential landlords are listening and they have a house in the southwest community of Calgary, Alberta, that they will rent to Michelle.
All right, let's manifest that. I am sad because there's one place that I really, really wanted, and I literally was like manifesting and like visualizing myself and the kids there, and I didn't get it, and I'm sad.
Yeah.
But hopefully, there's something else out there.
I know, it's like one of those things that, like, you gotta do the work, like, apply and go see places and do all
Yeah,
that stuff, but, like, I don't know, you just gotta hope that, like, the right thing is gonna come out at the right time.
yeah, no, for sure. There's so many people that are looking that it's hard to even get like a text back or a message back or a call back from
Yeah.
these landlords. Like I probably have sent out like 100 messages and gotten like 10% response back.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
it's
true.
it's pretty crazy.
And even we both texted the same ad within 5 minutes,
Yeah,
and I heard back, but you didn't.
yeah.
And so that's when I decided to become your
So
agent
now
and try
Carling
to
is renting a new house.
yeah. But yeah, it's just so crazy.
Something will come along.
Something will come along, and if you wanna support Michelle,
Hmm.
then you should join our Patreon, and yeah, I don't know, just send good thoughts.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers.
You need a Hail Mary? Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, I could go for one of those.
Yeah, I don't know what that really is, but
Basically like a miracle at the end of the line.
oh, yeah, let's get you a Hail Mary.
There we go.
All right, friend.
Good.
Well, you are gonna bring a kiddo to a haircut, and I am gonna go put a sick 9-year-old child to bed and finish editing this episode so everybody can enjoy it.
Okay, so when you do the COVID test while he's sleeping, please be recording, and also you should wear that headlamp that I gave you so that you can see what you're doing.
Here's the setup. Picture me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear a headlamp. I'm gonna hold the phone in my mouth so that it's recording, like
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and so you're getting like a face view, and you'll just hear me heavy breathing while I creak up this ladder. And
But
then
this is what's gonna happen is that you're gonna do it. He's gonna scream. You're gonna fall backwards off the loft bed.
yeah. But did we get it all on video and I can make a TikTok out of it?
There you go. It'll be worth it then.
Yeah.
All
All right. Have a good
right,
night,
goodbye.
and I hope everybody has a good week, and
We're
we will
so
talk to you
excited.
we will talk to you next week.
Okay.
Hey, bye.